Hey, greetings everyone. It is GleeCon, and I'm back again, bringing you another episode of Lore of Warcraft. Thank you so much for watching, for tuning in. Sorry about the day off yesterday. It was New Year's Eve, and I decided to just kind of reboot, spend some time with the family, and kick off. We are now kicking off the new year. So happy New Year to everyone, 2024. I don't remember exactly when this show started. It was right around New Year's. It might have been a couple days before, but we are also definitely beginning our third year of this show now, and time flies. On our last episode, we didn't accomplish a lot. We took Varrock, our orc protection warrior, through Thousand Needles, did a couple quests. Really, I think we just did 2 or 3, found some ore, rescued a princess with the help of some others. It was very challenging for me to do that escort quest on my own with my restoration shaman. I died a lot before finally someone came and helped it. We 3-manned it, and it's just very, very hard to do at or actually slightly below level. I did level up to 29 in the process, and I also have a setup for a quest I forgot to pick up from Thunderbluff. It's the kind of thing that won't happen in Wrath Classic because of the spreadsheet project that I'm working on. Excuse me. So we've also been reading through, this is where we're going to pick up today, The War of the Scaleborn, a new novel about what happened to create the rift between the Primals and the aspects of the dragon kind, basically the proto-drakes and dragon kind. We read in the last chapter there was a pact Alexstrasza made with Vironoth about not forcing any primal dragons to have to accept order magic. And almost promptly, right away, you hear her planning to take unprotected eggs from the wilds and infuse them with order magic so they can bolster their numbers. And right away, going back on her word. Stay a while and listen as we continue the story with Chapter 3 of War of the Scaleborn. Fyrak soared high over the northern plains, the cold air rushing across his molten scales. The frigid temperatures failed to dull the anger coursing through his veins. Only the thrill of combat could do that. He craved the clash of fang and claw, the bright bite of pain, the hot rush of violence. Today, Fyrak would draw blood from Iridikron's stone hide. The word on the wind said that Iridikron had guided Razageth through the rituals necessary to become imbued with the primal elements. The fact that she had survived the process spoke to the strength of her connection to storm magic, for hundreds of others had perished in the attempt before Fyrak's own success. It wasn't that Fyrak minded adding a third incarnate to their ranks. Oh no, they would need more incarnates if they meant to face the aspects on the battlefield. Fyrak was furious because Iridikron hadn't even consulted him on the matter. How bold of him, Fyrak thought, as if I were a mere pawn and he the unquestioned leader. He swooped lower as he drew closer to Iridikron's den of Harrow's Deep. In the south, Galakron's monstrous rib bones arched into the sky. Though the beast had been dead for more than 10 years, scraps of flesh still clung to his bones, flailing in the breeze. The stench from his flesh only stoked the fires of Fyrak's anger. Galakron reminded Fyrak of Alexstrasza's victory and rise as dragon aspect. Too many dragons had chosen to follow his cousin into folly. Even Tyrannostraz, the ancient and righteous worm, had chosen Alexstrasza over his own primal nature. Directly to the south, a new Titan abomination took shape, rising in the shadow of Galakron's fall. Fyrak's scouts said that the aspects were to name this tower Wormrest Temple. To Fyrak's eye, the tower was even more monstrous than the stinking pile of Galakron's bones. No doubt the aspects would use the place to spy on the primal dragons. Fyrak wanted to scorch it to the ground, but Iridikron had forbidden him from attacking the Ordered outright. Do not alarm the aspects, Iridikron had said. The less they suspect, the better. Fyrak had scoffed at the idea. Rather than wait and watch, the incarnates needed to strike at Valdrakken now, before the aspects' dragonflights grew any larger or more powerful. The fifth and final Oathstone had been empowered in Nosdormu's bastion of Thaldraszus last spring, and Fyrak had heard of the changes the Oathstones wrought in the flights. By all reports, the Order were stronger now and more unified. Rumors of their strength drew more dragons to the Broodlands. Alright, so a couple things of note. We're in Northrend here, as opposed to the Dragonlands, and we are obviously a couple years down the road. So all the Oathstones are built, whereas when we left off it was just the second one. And we also see Fyrak, Iridikron, and now Ralastraz, or whatever her name is, are now Primals. No matter. Hundreds of primal dragons had already joined Fyrak's cause, as had thousands of Terrasek, the small bipedal dragon kind native to the Dragon Wilds. If he and Iridikron flew on Valdrakken, Fyrak was certain they could crush Alexstrasza and her allies with their combined might. And yet Iridikron had insisted they wait. Fyrak hated that so many of his allies had turned to Iridikron for leadership. If anyone had the right to lead their new movement, it was he. Fyrak had been the first to speak out against Alexstrasza on the aspects, the first to survive being suffused by elemental energies, and the one who had rallied a rapidly growing force of primal dragons to the cause. He deserved to lead the growing rebellion, not Iridikron. I'm not gonna lie, I don't know what the heck happened to Iridikron. Somehow, I don't know if it was in a raid that I missed or the mega dungeon I missed, but all of a sudden I feel like Iridikron's not around in Dragonflight, and I don't know what happened. Which was exactly why Fyrak had flown north from his lair in the Caldera. If Iridikron wanted to lead, he would have to take that right by wing and by talon. Fyrak would not simply bow to Iridikron's whims, even if Iridikron had been the one to discover how to imbue oneself with elemental energies in the first place. One massive craggy peak speared the sky, standing taller than any other mountain in the whole range, Harrow's Deep. At its base, Fyrak spotted the mouth of a familiar cavern, one encrusted with glittering ice and snow. Iridikron had dug tunnels far into the world's crust, allowing him to absorb the element of stone unhindered. It was said the earth itself now responded to the stone-scaled's mastery. A formidable foe, to be sure, but Fyrak feared no dragon. Fyrak landed in the snow, which melted and hissed beneath his feet. Two primal dragons, each with mottled gray scales, stood guard at the cavern's entrance. "I am here to see Iridikron," he said to the guards. His breath plumed around his snout. "Take me to him." The two dragons shared a look. "No, Blazing One," the first replied in his underdeveloped speech, cocking his head. "Stone-scaled busy." "Iridikron will make time for me," Fyrak said. The dragon narrowed his eyes. "No, he busy." Fyrak stepped forward, scales blazing. A column of fire swirled around him, melting the snow in a 2-wingspan diameter and desiccating the earth below his feet. The two primal dragons stumbled back, dropping their heads to protect their throats. They ruffled the protective scales around their shoulders and backed away, smelling of sharp, coppery fear. Fyrak scoffed. He could snuff out the sparks of their lives with a single swipe of his talons. "Do you think I cower before your master?" Fyrak said, stepping toward the cavern. "It is because of me that he discovered how to attain his power. Without me, he would not be the stone-scaled. Step aside, or I will return you to the ground to which you so desperately cleave." The interior of Harrow's Deep had changed since Fyrak had last seen it. The main cavern yawned wider and higher than before, and the air smelled of sulfur and smoke. Hundreds of stalactites hung from the ceiling, toothy and sharp. A circular sinkhole dominated the floor, twisting down into tunnels and warrens. Fyrak thought the sinkhole might be 10 wingspans wide, maybe more. A new waterfall tumbled through it, plunging hundreds of talon lengths into a dark pool at the bottom. Stepping inside Harrow's Deep felt like walking into the maw of a giant predator. It left Fyrak feeling ill at ease. He shook off the feeling with a growl. The guards were right, Fyrak thought, stalking toward the edge of the sinkhole. Stone-scaled busy. Everywhere he looked, Harrow's Deep bustled with activity. Primal dragons excavated new tunnels. Terrasek scurried about, carting supplies to and fro. Shouts echoed. Metal rang on metal. Fyrak narrowed his eyes. What was Iridikron planning without him this time? "You there," Fyrak said, gesturing to a small pack of Terrasek with a talon. One of them squeaked and dropped the hide-wrapped package it was carrying. Tell me where Iridicron is now. The Tarasek pointed, shaking talons, to a large-mouthed tunnel at the base of the sinkhole. With a growl, Fyrak dived off the ledge and plummeted toward the blue water at the bottom. The waterfall's spray evaporated against the heat of his scales. Fyrak alighted on a ledge below the waterfall. The sulphurous smell grew stronger here, acrid enough to make his eyes water. He followed a tunnel into the earth. Phosphorescent green mushrooms grew along the ceiling, providing little light. The deeper Fyrak went, the more the tunnels tightened. He bristled every time his wings scraped the walls. The ground trembled underfoot, shaken by unseen forces. Bits of rock and dust hit his scales, giving him the uncomfortable reminder of just how deep he was beneath the surface. Fyrak wasn't meant to be underground like this, trapped like some lesser beast. The bright fires in his belly smothered. Perhaps he'd been brash to think he could challenge Iridicron in his seat of power, but he wasn't about to turn back. Not now. When Fyrak emerged into a wide cavern, some of the tension in his chest unspooled. Unlike the upper cavern, this place had no natural light. Instead, great fires burned in clawed braziers, casting shadows across the walls. The air felt humid and damp. Droplets of water dripped off the ends of stalactites. Massive pillars bore the weight of the mountain, their forms twisted and bulbous. In the upper cavern was the maw of the beast. Fyrak was now in the creature's belly. Iridicron's voice rumbled through the room, his words indecipherable. Fyrak turned his head, following the stone-scaled's voice. "To monitor the aspect's progress," Iridicron said as Fyrak drew closer. "Neltharion builds a fortress along the western border of the Broodlands. We must infiltrate the new construction and design an ingress point, preferably underground." Iridicron stood in a small chamber surrounded by 7 or 8 of his wing leaders. Since being imbued with primal earth energies, Iridicron's scales had hardened to stone. The incarnate had doubled in size and towered over the other dragons in the room, a mountain among the foothills. Amber earth energy seeped out of the fissure on his back, reminding Fyrak of the volcanoes that could crack the earth wide open. Iridicron's every movement made the ground shudder. As Fyrak stepped into the cavern, the stone-scaled turned his bright, piercing gaze on him. The other primal dragons swiveled their heads, looking askance at Fyrak. Iridicron stood before a strange stone slab, one with features Fyrak thought he recognized, just in miniature. Fyrak frowned. Were those not the mountains of Thaldraszus? And that depression there, did that not symbolize the Emerald Plains? Though Fyrak hadn't spent much time in the Broodlands, he still recalled its prominent features. It was clear Iridicron was plotting something without Fyrak again. "I did not recall inviting you to this meeting," Iridicron said, annoyed. He tapped the map of the Broodlands with a talon. It sank into the stone floor with a rumble. "I need no invitation," Fyrak spat, stepping into the room. "I will have an audience, Iridicron." "You have no right to barge into my keep and demand an audience," Iridicron replied. "I have business to conduct. We can speak later." "No, we will speak now," Fyrak said. "I was the first incarnate across the breach, the first to succeed. I will not bow to you, Iridicron." One of Iridicron's wing leaders turned on Fyrak with a growl, and a second joined the first, fangs flashing. Without a word, the stone scale drew himself up to his full height. He thumped his tail on the ground, sending shivers through the stone floor. The 2 wing leaders looked to Iridicron and bowed their heads, cowed. Well, Fyrak would not be cowed. He was a dragon born of fire and fury, not some spineless lackey. "You hide here in your lair using the power I helped you attain to build a fortress, rally an army, and craft your little schemes, which you keep from everyone, even those to whom you owe allegiance," Fyrak said with a snarl. A sharp pebble pricked the bottom of his foot, then another. Fyrak shook out one foot and continued. "This was not your knowledge alone to share, especially with one as unpredictable as Razageth." The stone-scaled said nothing. He watched Fyrak with an unsettling intensity, unmoving, unblinking. His refusal to speak only buffeted the flames of Fyrak's fury. "This is just like you," Fyrak continued, fire now spouting from his tongue. "All you do is watch. Wait. We should have engaged the aspects before they started turning our kind into more of those Titan abominations. You counsel patience while you hide in your den, allowing the aspects to grow stronger by the day. You are a fool, Iridikron. At the word fool, the stone-scaled's glowing eyes narrowed. His wing leaders went still. One of them looked upon Fyrak with pity, but he ignored it, just like he ignored the trembling ground beneath his feet. One thing you must learn about me, Fyrak, Iridikron said softly, tilting his head a few degrees to the left, is that I prefer my enemies unseeing, unaware of my full strength, until it is much too late. A great weight settled between Fyrak's shoulder blades. He shifted, shuffling his wings, joints creaking. He tried to lift his feet, but to his horror he could not feel or move them. Fyrak looked down. The floor softened beneath him as if it turned to mud. His feet sank into the rock, which grew solid once more. As the gray stone began to swallow up his shins, his heart skipped a beat. Panicky tried to tug himself free. When he attempted to flap his wings to generate lift, the floor held him fast. A fury coursing through Fyrak's veins cooled to fear. What? He gasped, struggling in his stony shackles. Iridikron, you would lift talon against me? Me, your brother and the very spark of your success? Saying nothing, Iridikron stalked forward, eyes slitted. His wing leaders scattered before him. The great energies along the stone-scaled spine blazed ever brighter. Do you truly think I hide here in Harrow's Deep, ignorant of the threat growing in the east? He asked quietly. Let me go! Fyrak managed, nearly choking on the words. A gorge grew in his throat, making him feel as though he had swallowed a stone. Was that also the stone-scaled's power, or merely his own debilitating fear? He tossed his head, trying to break free of Iridikron's trap. Still the fire dragon sank lower, till stone constricted his ribs and his breath. Fyrak was going to die here, far from the sky, starving for air. He gasped, eyes bulging, heart shuddering, yet could not draw enough air to satisfy his need. His flames withered and the heat in his body dwindled. Fire has the power to cleanse the world, but only molten stone has the power to shape it, Iridikron said. We cannot face the aspects as we are, and your wanton belligerence will prove no match for one such as Neltharion. Our new movement needs someone to temper it, mold it, hone it. Do you understand? Darkness edged Fyrak's sight. He was drowning, dying. Yes, he rasped. Good, Iridikron said, tapping a single talon on the floor. The stone released Fyrak, who collapsed to the ground and sucked in a deep, greedy breath. When the air hit his lungs, it sent him into a coughing fit, belching smoke and ash. Hot tears leaked from his eyes, and he clawed at the earth as his muscles spasmed. Do not mistake me, Fyrak, Iridikron said. Your fiery rhetoric will convince many of the nobility of our cause as it did me, but you do not have the temperament to lead. Fyrak lifted his head to meet Iridikron's gaze. From wingtip to wingtip, every part of him ached. He swallowed hard, wincing at the rough rasp of air in his throat and lungs. Follow me, Iridikron said. Together you and I shall put an end to the aspects and their titan defilement. I swear to you this day, I will not allow them to drive our kind to the brink of extinction. Fyrak wasn't sure why he said yes. Perhaps he was surprised Iridikron let him live. Perhaps the last 20 or 30 heartbeats had given him a newfound respect for the stone-scaled. Or perhaps all Fyrak had wanted was an assurance that the Incarnates would not disregard the Aspect's tyranny, that Iridikron meant to do something with the power Fyrak had helped him attain. Now he knew. Come, Iridikron said, moving toward the cavern door. Let us see how our sister has fared. As Fyrak and Iridikron flew, the skies over the northern storm-scale mountains roiled with thick purple-black clouds, turning the day to darkest night. An enormous cyclone churned across the landscape. Bright blue bolts of lightning danced at the storm, illuminating the clouds from within. Fyrak could taste the energy from the bolts on his tongue. Its current crackled along his scales. The winds howled, trying to pull him into their restless maelstrom. In all his years, Fyrak had never seen such a terrible squall. It left a wide trail of destruction in its wake, tearing a deep gash in the valley floor, uprooting trees and sending animals fleeing. And yet there was something thrilling about witnessing such a wanton display of power. Razageth's strength and ability was undeniable. Perhaps Iridikron was right to choose her to be the third incarnate. Razageth's laugh boomed through the heavens, intoxicated with elemental power. "These winds will snap the wings from our backs," Iridikron called to Fyrak. "Come, let us take shelter in stone." Iridikron tucked his wings close to his body and dived toward a nearby mountain peak. Despite what had happened just hours before, Fyrak would be glad to have the mountain's unshakable stone beneath his feet. He folded his wings and followed, landing atop a nearby mountain beside Iridikron. "Look at her," Iridikron said, his voice brimming with pride. "Is Razagath not magnificent? Is she not the very pinnacle of what our kind can achieve? How could our brethren turn to the Keepers when everything we need is already within our grasp?" "I do not know," Fyrak replied, turning his face skyward. "But this schism that divides our kind must be ended. All dragons should be free, not just from the Titan's edicts, but from Alexstrasza's false reign." Iridikron was silent for a moment, watching the storm rage before them. He turned to Fyrak. "And fight we shall. All I ask is for your trust. No, your patience, which I know is in short supply." Fyrak blew a hot breath from his nostrils. Iridikron snorted, lifting his gaze back to the storm. "We will put an end to the aspects and their masters, but we must approach the coming battle with strategy and care, and I am reluctant to strike as long as Tyr still lives. We cannot know the full extent of the magic the Keepers have granted the aspects, but they are no longer the dragons we once knew." "Luckily, neither are we," Fyrak said. Before Iridikron could reply, a massive bolt of lightning shot from the heavens, shaking the earth and gashing open the clouds. A column of sunlight dropped into the storm. The light fell upon a dragon Fyrak no longer recognized. White-blue lightning now danced down Razageth's back, lapped across her wings, and sparked from her eyes. Her once mottled, dull scales now gleamed purple-black, the same color as the clouds that swirled around her. Razageth was the embodiment of storm, imbued with all the wrath and brutality of the sky's fiercest tempests. "If we mean to face the aspects," Iridikron told Fyrak, "we will need at least one more." "Who?" Fyrak asked, cocking his head. "Few dragons have the strength, will, instinct, and determination to survive the process of being imbued with the elements." "I can think of one other, one whose presence among us would pierce Alexstrasza's heart like a talon," Iridikron replied. "But that concern is for another day. Come, Fyrak, let us congratulate our sister on her ascension." All right, so we have Razageth added to the mix, and we have seen them become actual primals now. And we have another episode in the pipe, 5x5. Thank you everyone so much, as always, for watching and for listening. I appreciate you, and I look forward to seeing you all next time on Lore of Warcraft.